Welcome to the Sales Influence Podcast, where we talk about finding the why in how people buy. I'm your host, Victor Antonio. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for lending me those ears. Today, I want to talk about 4 strategies for improving your efficiency and your productivity. Yes, I want to help you become more efficient and more productive. But as I'm going through these 4 different strategies, I want you to keep this in mind, that when you're talking to clients or customers, you can use these strategies as part of your sales pitch or sales process or presentation. Let me explain. See, there's 4 ways to become more effective or more productive. I want you to think of a task that you currently have to do. Think of a task that you have to do. For example, if you're in selling, obviously if you're listening to this podcast, you are, but let's say that you have to create a presentation and you have a certain process for creating a presentation. And let's say you lay out that process and you put them in block form. First, I'll do this. For example, do the research, then I'll do this, get the client's feedback, number 3, 4, 5, and let's say you have a 10-step process for doing a presentation. Or let's say you have a 10-step process for managing your day, and whatever it may be. So think of a process that you have to, again, implement to complete a task. So think of a task. What are the steps to complete the task? Create a box outline, box 1, box 2, box 3. This is the actual sequence you have to follow. Now, look at your diagram. Look at your diagram and then ask yourself, what can I delete or subtract from this process? That's strategy number 1. In other words, what don't I need to do? Because sometimes when you lay out a process, you realize, I really don't have to do that part. So maybe there's something that you can delete or subtract. That's one way of actually becoming more efficient and more productive. The next may be is that as you're looking at this block diagram, this process, you realize that you could combine 2 of these processes into one. In other words, 2 of these steps can be combined into one. Maybe you realize that, hey, you know what? Instead of, getting a document, sending a document to my client, having the client sign the document, and then having them return the document, and then I sign it and send them a copy, maybe I can sign up for, let's say, DocuSign, and I can just do this all in one step, where everything is sent out automatically, the client gets it, and you sign it automatically. So now you've taken maybe a 2-3-step process, and now you've combined it into one. So that's another way of doing it. Sometimes as you're looking at your process or your steps in your process, you realize that maybe you could replace one of them, one that's more efficient. So maybe there's a step in your process. As you're going through it, you go, you know what, I can replace that step with something that's faster and quicker to do. Maybe instead of kind of writing things out in a certain step, you realize I can use templates. Okay, so I'll replace this step by step with a template that I could use. Whatever it may be. Think of, for example, creating videos. Maybe you have a process for creating a video. And maybe you realize that, hey, this step right here, if I can replace it with this application, that'll make it more effective. Again, think of replacement. So far we've talked about 3. Delete something, a step in your process, delete or subtract. Number 2, maybe you can combine 2 steps together. Number 3, you can look at one and replace it. Or, here's an interesting one most people never think of. Let's say you've laid out these steps, right, in creating, let's do something simple, like a video. And you realize that if you just rearrange the steps, in other words, just change the sequence, you can actually do it that much quicker. So for example, maybe you want to do the graphics after you do the video as opposed to doing it before. Simply looking at your steps, rearranging them may actually make you more productive. So there you have it. 4 different strategies. Delete, combine things, replace something, or rearrange them. Now that you're more efficient and more productive, now let's think about how we would apply that to a customer. Let's say you're doing a presentation and you want to create value. You want to create differentiation. Well, maybe you can look at it from one of these 4 perspectives. As you're looking at the client's problems, maybe your pitch, your approach to the presentation is how you're going to help them delete, subtract other processes and their other steps in their processes with your product. Or maybe you're going to show them how your software will allow them to combine multiple steps. Or maybe By replacing what they currently have with what you have, they'll become more efficient and productive. Or last but not least, maybe with your product or service, you can help them rearrange how they do things to become that much more effective. So as you can see, this can help you, but it can also help you in helping your customers become that much more productive and effective. And that is it for the Sales Influence Podcast. Leave me some feedback on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, wherever you find me. Always love to hear your comment. Also, if you haven't done so already, why haven't you checked out the Sales Velocity Academy? Go to salesvelocityacademy.com. If you want to sell more faster and you really want to become very effective at selling, go to salesvelocityacademy.com. And that is it for the Sales Influence Podcast. This is Victor Antonio, always reminding you, selling ain't hard when you know how. Take care. Hi, I'm Victor Antonio. I'm an author, sales trainer, and keynote speaker. I'm often asked, what makes a great speaker? Is it someone who delivers real content that the audience can use? Is it someone who engages the audience so they're part of the learning experience? Or is it someone who can motivate an audience to push them beyond their comfort zone and discover new abilities? The answer is yes. But the most important thing to remember is that I'm not there to look good. I'm there to make my client look good. Simply put, it's never about me, and it's always about them.